Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Ria Aguinaldo. I'm the Northern California Outreach Manager with Small Business Majority, and I'm pleased to bring this webinar to you today in partnership with my colleague, Xiomara Pena, our Southern California Outreach Manager. So in the next hour, me and Theo are going to go over how small businesses can create work-based learning opportunities for local youth. We as an organization have been involved in working with small business owners to connect with local youth in their communities through providing internships, mentorship opportunities, a number of different short-term and long-term engagement options. And we've also been very involved on the workforce development side. So in working with small business owners, we've also been partnering with organizations like workforce development organizations, youth development organizations, to create a better tie between the small business community that have the opportunities at their businesses and are interested in getting involved and working and connecting with the workforce development pipeline who train the youth, who work with young people on a daily basis. And so for us as an organization, we're very committed to making sure that that connection and sort of the two different silos are brought together. So that is sort of the impetus of this webinar today. We are looking forward to educating you on what is work-based learning, what does that look like for a small business owner, what are the various programs such as linked learning and other local programs that small businesses can get connected to, and where to begin. So what are some steps that you can take, some simple steps as a small business owner that you can take to first get involved with youth that might not be a long-term commitment. So we do realize that as busy small business owners, time is definitely something that is very valuable. And for many entrepreneurs and businesses, they don't quite have enough of. So we'll sort of map out some of the different engagement options for you, ranking them from short-term engagement options to sort of more long-term and longer-term commitment. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this session, so we will make the recording available to you. We also will be taking questions at the end, so feel free to type your questions in the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. The lines will be muted for the entire webinar. All right. Now, I already quickly went over these, the topics of discussion, but I'll just go over this once again. We'll talk about some of the problems and the challenges. Why should small business owners and entrepreneurs care about working with young people? Is there a business case that is involved in terms of how small business owners can work with young people? What are the opportunities that we have in our local communities? What types of support, what types of programs are out there and are offered for small businesses and young people? What is the Linked Learning Program? So the Linked Learning Program is a statewide initiative that we'll go over in depth, and we'll also talk about how we as an organization have plugged into this program. We'll talk about the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which is available for small businesses, and then we'll end out with partners and resources. So we'll sort of localize how to get involved, and Xiomara and I will talk about the various partners that we work with in our region and resources to get connected with. All right, now with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Theo. Theo, feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining today's webinar. A little bit of background about Small Business Majority. So we are a national, nonprofit, nonpartisan small business education and advocacy organization that's really looking to focus on those topics of high importance to small business owners and entrepreneurs. As mentioned, we are national, so we do have 9 offices throughout the country. Ria and I both manage our California operations, Ria managing all Northern California and myself down here managing all of our Southern California operations. And work-based learning in California is one of those topics that is increasingly important for the small business community to engage in, simply because there are so many programs across the California coast that small business owners can take advantage of, from interns that provide full paid internships through various workforce investment boards, or placement opportunities or speaking engagements through local nonprofits, and we'll get to that. But in terms of the issues that we work on for small business, it doesn't necessarily stop at work-based learning. We have worked on very public policy heavy topics such as healthcare and immigration, even going as far as public lands, but also those education topics that small business owners deeply care about: access to capital. How do I start or grow or expand my business? We also have workshops on retirement, taxes, and all of our work is supported by extensive research, so third-party polling that is conducted on these various small business topics. About a year and a half ago, we launched an entrepreneurship program that looks to bring education in key areas of running and growing a small business through online and in-person workshops. We also have an online portal that has information on multiple different resources, from micro lenders to crowdfunding to new alternative online platforms. But it's a hub for small business owners and entrepreneurs that are looking at really expanding their business. And you can visit our resource portal at that link below. So a little bit about our model. I talked about it earlier on. Our work falls into really three buckets: research, advocacy, and education. We really do start with that extensive third-party polling that includes economic studies on multiple different small business topics. For work-based learning, we actually did a qualitative research study holding 6 roundtables throughout the state of California to really engage with both the small business community and with resource providers, and find out where the biggest challenges, where were the gaps. And now we're in that second phase of this project where we're taking what we learned and implementing it through these educational workshops. We also utilize our research to advocate for the small business community, helping small business owners craft letters to the editor, op-ed pieces. We have a blog on our website where we highlight small business owners across the country and share their stories, help connecting those voices to those legislators that are making decisions that affect the small business community on multiple different public policy topics. And then our educational programs. So we work with over 195 strategic partners to provide educational workshops, and that includes various small business development centers. We have a partnership with the SBA, with multiple different chambers of commerce and business organizations in general, to really bring this education and information, these resources that we gather, and share them with the small business community. All of our events are available on our Small Business Majority website through our event calendar, where you can find out if we're having in-person events in your community or an upcoming webinar on a topic that may be of interest to you. So I definitely encourage you to check those out. And we have this amazing network using real small business voices with lawmakers and the media. So over 15,000 earned media hits have been accomplished over the last 11 years. When it comes to small business organizations, I think we're relatively still new. We've only been in operation this year, is our 11th year. And those small business voices that we connect with, that network is so powerful. Also important to note, there are no membership fees attached to our work. So the presentations that we host are free for small business owners to attend. Most of our work is funded through grants that we're able to receive to be able to promote education and resources amongst the small business community. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Rhea.
Great, thanks. All right, so now we'll move into some of the background in terms of what we've learned. So we have, for the last year and a half, have done research around work-based learning. We've done roundtables around opportunity youth, and now we're sort of at the phase where we're rolling out the implementation. So rolling out how can we actually connect small business owners with young people in an efficient and effective way for sort of both sides. So now we'll just talk about some of the problems and the challenges that we've learned and how we sort of move forward from there. First, it's important for us to discuss why small business. And this slide, it flows quite nicely from the last slide that Samara went over around our model. But so small business owners, why is it important for us to look to small business owners to sort of solve workforce issues, problems that are faced across the country, and why is it also important for us to look at small business owners on policy issues? So a couple of points that we wanted to address here. First is the small business owners are top trusted messengers within their communities as well as across the country. So small business owners are viewed positively by 71% of the public, more trusted than churches, academic institutions, and large corporations. So they certainly are positive forces in terms of creating change and of opinion leaders in their communities. They're also, most importantly, key job creators. So we hear time and time again that small business owners are the backbone of the economy, and we can absolutely attest to that point by the data. So 99.7% of all employer firms are small. 43% of the U.S. private sector payroll comes from small businesses, and small businesses employ half of private sector workforce, and also 2 out of every 3 jobs are created by a small business. So just from those key data points and those numbers alone, it really goes to show when we're looking at work-based learning and the opportunities that can be created within the community, within the job force is certainly available through small businesses. And so the key here is just to provide the education to small business owners and make sure that they understand and that you truly understand that you're a driving force of economic development in your communities. And so taking that next step to help train the future generation of the workforce, essentially to sort of train your future pipeline of employees is a very powerful point that we wanted to address here.
And with that, when we're looking at engaging on employers on work-based learning opportunities, we are recognizing that there is a problem, as Rhea mentioned, that pipeline of trained employees that are out of high school or out of college ready to work. We notice small employers struggle to fill entry-level positions. About 40% cite lack of skills as the number one reason for entry-level vacancies. And so research definitely does indicate that there is a job skills gap in terms of the skills that folks are leaving institutions with. And meanwhile, we have about 6.7 million young Americans that are out of school or out of work, which is commonly termed as displaced youth. And Small Business Majority's opinion polling found that while a majority of small business owners are hiring, about 56% identify finding candidates with the right kind of experiences as the biggest difficulty they face when hiring new employees. And another 54% identify finding candidates with the right education, skills, or training as the biggest hiring challenges. One of the things that we learned from the roundtables that we had with both small business owners and educators, and that included groups that focused on youth development and workforce, to look at some of the challenges. It was really to address the question of what's preventing small businesses from providing more robust workforce training to young people. And when we posed that question, we learned some very interesting things.
So we wanted to touch on what we learned here. And so one overarching sentiment that we learned from the roundtables is that small business owners see workforce-based training opportunities as a good investment in local economies and in their business. So they do believe that if young people have better training for the workplace, they'll ultimately contribute to a better workforce and create a stronger generation of employees. But with that being said, there were also some challenges that came out from some small business owners in terms of the skill set of young people. So we've learned that small business owners are very concerned about young people's soft skills and the ability to do basic tasks, like be on time, like how to answer the phone in the professional manner, to shake hands, use eye contact, and provide general customer service. So this was a key point that we were surprised to learn because what we've been hearing in the dialogue around work-based learning is that it's really the high-skilled workers that small business owners are worried about in terms of kind of the STEM field or having a young person that understands how to use kind of the technology or the machinery that they have in their business. But it was a surprise for us to learn that it's those basic soft skills. So from one partner we heard they actually call them essential skills, because for many young people that don't know how to kind of have a professional conversation or shake hands, or even when a customer walks into the door, they need to put their phone down and look the customer in the eye and greet them. So that was one of the key takeaways that we learned, is that there really needs to be an improvement of soft skills, and that was a challenge or a concern for employers in providing these opportunities. And then lastly, many small business owners do feel that training young people is just the right thing to do. So that altruistic motivation provided an extra push for small business owners who thought about working with youth. All right. And then moving forward on to the challenges. So some of the challenges, again, that I sort of touched on the previous slide. Small business owners are reluctant to engage young people based on that lack of soft skills and basic business etiquette. The next one is crucial. So lack of time or resources to engage in workplace learning opportunities for young people. This is perhaps for us one of the key challenges, key concerns that we've heard. As business owners, you all are balancing your books, you're creating the widgets, you are even sometimes changing the toilet paper in the bathroom. So figuring out how to recruit an intern or where to find them, or how to navigate sort of the HR onboarding side of it too. Those are challenges that we've seen and that we've heard echoed at these roundtables. Concerns about liability and inadvertently misclassifying a worker or an intern. That was another key point. And then lastly, lack of information on how to connect with local organizations. So as I mentioned at the start, there are hundreds of organizations across the state that are committed to working with youth, but the lack of outreach to the small business community and awareness of the small business community about these organizations is definitely contributing to the challenge for small business. But with that being said, we do have an opportunity, and for a couple of these points here, we will talk about some solutions and how to get over some of the concerns that we address here.
So speaking of that, let's move forward in the presentation. When it comes to the opportunity to have the small employers engage, one of the things that we found to be important is to really talk about the multiple different options that you have when it comes to engagement. The small business community can contribute heavily to a young person's development and industry focus through just even attending a high school and talking about how they got started as a small business owner. We've seen that be extremely beneficial in industries like manufacturing, for example, where they are facing a crisis in terms of a lot of employees leaving the workforce or aging out and having a hard time attracting younger employees or potential employees into the manufacturing industry. And so you've seen a lot of manufacturers open their doors, host walkthroughs and job fairs, so for young folks to actually come and look at the equipment and realize, oh my God, this is really interesting. I didn't realize how much technology is actually used when it comes to manufacturing, or talking about the overall process or earning potential. A lot of these opportunities are available, but how do you find them? So we've created a unique opportunity to match the next generation of Californians ready and willing to learn with employers who want to help prepare the workforce of the future. And small business owners, again, can get involved in multiple different capacities depending on your time and your level of commitment. I mean, a lot of small business owners wear 17 different hats, as Rhea mentioned. And so is a short-term more beneficial or reasonable or realistic than a long-term engagement such as a mentoring or internship program that lasts a full summer? And then how you can partner with different local workforce groups and resource providers. So I'm going to go ahead and go into detail very quickly on some of these short-term engagement options. Guest speaker, being a guest speaker serves as an opportunity to share your story of small business ownership or entrepreneurship in a classroom-style setting. So teachers at multiple different high schools, as young as middle schools, I know, have also started going into the community and reaching out to local community members to come and present and act as guest speakers for their classroom to teach younger individuals about the multiple different industries and just in entrepreneurship in general. So as it stands right now, several districts in California do operate with a program called Linked Learning, which we'll talk about later on in the presentation. But some of these teachers have boards where they connect with small business owners and try to find those opportunities. But it doesn't have to necessarily mean that you, as a small business owner, wait for that call. Maybe there's a way that you can go to your local high school and talk to an administrator there or a teacher in economics or perhaps a math class or maybe social studies, and ask to see if they have room to have a guest speaker. This is a great marketing and PR opportunity for you as a small business owner. We know that a lot of customers really do care about social giving or corporate social responsibility, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean at the corporate level. We see a lot of large businesses, because they have the robust HR departments, being able to provide those long-term engagement options as well as short-term engagement options. But as small business owners, this is one of those options that may make sense because of the limited time. You're talking about spending 15 to 20 minutes sharing your story, maybe longer, sharing your story, being able to showcase your product or talk about, you know, some of the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur that may encourage somebody to look closely at that industry. Job shadowing is about a 3 to 6 hour activity that allows observation of daily activities, and it exposes students to various career pathways. And so similar, I know that I've connected with many manufacturing companies, both small and mid-sized, so about 50 to 75 employees, but smaller with 25 employees. They've provided several job shadowing opportunities and have opened their doors to allow between 3 to 5 students to spend a day or part of the day in the work environment to see what are the daily tasks. Business tours. Business tours can be a great community engagement opportunity for your business. Some of the high schools, depending on the age of the child, they have liability forms or liability waivers that have to be signed by the parent. They also have options where you can have the parent and the child come in, so you're also exposing your business to perhaps folks in the community that may not know that you're out there. And mock interviews. They provide real-world feedback from students' interview skills. This is really important. We've heard that students do, younger and younger individuals, including millennials and the next generation, really like real-time feedback. And mock interviews are a great way to be able to talk to somebody and say, this is where your resume can improve, or if I'm an employer that's looking to hire, you definitely need to put your phone on vibrate because you can't have it ringing during the interview. These are things that can help the learning process. I've actually connected one small business owner here in the San Fernando Valley to participate in a mock interview, and he enjoyed it so much that he's already found 2 more mock interview opportunities to actually engage with high schoolers on that level.
All right, now I will go into more of the long-term engagement options. So when we talked about on that challenges slide, the lack of time and resources for small business owners to provide more of these long-term engagement options, I think it's important to note that we highly recommend, if you have not yet provided an internship or if this is your first kind of foray into working with young people, we really do recommend starting small. So start with those short-term engagement options. Start with the guest speaker, the mock interviews, and the resume review are certainly the ones that are kind of the lowest lift. You get they're scheduled. You have a set period of time that you have to commit, and from there, we'll really dip your toe in the water in terms of what engagement, what type of commitment level you'd be willing to move forward with. And so then with that being said, these options here I would say, are the most sort of meaningful in terms of providing that long-term commitment, long-term coaching opportunities for young people. We've heard time and time again that from our workforce development partners that to get a small business owner, to confirm a small business owner for a long-term engagement, so between 2 to 4 months of training, really does provide not only the employment and the job training piece of it, but it provides more of this kind of the social and more personal training for youth as well. And it's important for us to note that we also focus these areas on opportunity youth, communities of color, and low-income communities that might not have mentors available within their existing homes. And so it's worth mentioning that these longer-term engagement options are sort of the end goal in terms of work-based learning. So for internships or apprenticeships, they can be either paid or unpaid. And it's important to note that the U.S. Fair Labor Standards Act restricts the employer's use of unpaid interns. And so there is information. We do have information on that if you are navigating whether or not you are within the kind of restrictions there. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get the right information to you. Internships, generally speaking, provide 2 to 4 months of on-the-job training for students to gain relevant knowledge and professional skills in your industry. What we have found is many of the partners in the workforce training organizations will segment their internships based on industry. So if you find that that you're in an industry that might not have a lot of internship opportunities available. That can be, I think, an incentive for you to get involved. I know that a couple of small business owners that I've met that have taken an interest in offering an internship were because they felt that they had a duty as one was a woman construction owner, and she felt that that there's a lack of women in her industry, and so she really felt the need and the commitment to train young girls and young women in construction and in contracting. So it's important to note that industry is important. Is an important factor into the internships and the apprenticeships field. Mentorships are opportunities to help to develop the workforce talent pipeline. Mentors serve as career development coaches with the student that are interested in a particular field or occupation by providing guidance and ongoing support. So a difference between an internship and a mentorship is usually the internship is more focused on the professional skills in the industry, the learning, as CMR mentioned, learning the machinery or the equipment, learning actually how to run various components of that job within the industry. Whereas mentorship is more focused on a career development, so in essence, like a life coach. Providing guidance on not only professional help, but also ongoing support on their education, on helping them sort of get through life generally, and how to make those steps forward within their schooling and also within their sort of social and personal life as well. And then the last one, of course, employment. Employment, we would all love if you could all employ youth, but we do know that that's not always the case. But long-term engagement options certainly covers offering a job, whether it's a full-time job, a summer or part-time job, for students to learn and to earn a wage while also building skills and working in the successful sort of steps in their career development. And then again, as CMR mentioned, there are marketing and PR opportunities for your business in working with youth. So using these stories and these opportunities as a brand building opportunity and showing to your local community that you are committed to working with youth is certainly a benefit for small businesses. Right. Now moving on to linked learning. Now we talked about a program that we have been plugged into, and so we wanted to go over what the Linked Learning Alliance is and what their work entails. So the Linked Learning Alliance is a statewide coalition of education, industry, and community organizations that are dedicated to improving California's high schools and preparing students for success in college and throughout their career. It's important to note here that linked learning, it offers a framework to solve workforce challenges by providing young people with opportunities, and the programs under the Linked Learning opportunities or Linked Learning program are not just through small business. So you'll see programs that are geared towards larger employers. Employment Development Agency, I believe, works closely with the one-stops and the workforce investment boards to create a larger and more longer-term opportunities at larger businesses. So we're particularly plugged into how can we get small businesses into this linked learning fold. Since we know the power of small business and there's much impact that can be done by linking them in with youth, that's how we fit. Small Business Majority sort of fits into the puzzle here. All right. And then it's also important to note that linked learning is essentially if you've been involved in workforce development before, there are a number of different terms, of different kind of lingo that are involved here when we're talking about work-based learning. So with linked learning, it can also be considered career pathways. So it's the terms to push forward this kind of broad umbrella of connecting youth with employment opportunities is essentially what linked learning is doing here in California. And there are the following school districts actively participate in linked learning. So that means all of these school districts have existing programming that works with their high school students to connect them with work-based learning opportunities, whether that's through internships and partnering with a local chamber, or working with a workforce development organization to create collaborative efforts to make sure that high schoolers have opportunities, say, after school or over the summer. So for all of these districts, you'll see creative programming that is tailored to each of their regions. And each of these regions, we've plugged in with a number of these districts, and if you are within any of these areas, we'd be happy to work with you to see what types of partners and what types of programs there are in your area.
Before I move on to the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, I just very quickly also want to mention that when it comes to the linked learning pathway model, there are several districts that haven't necessarily fully adopted linked learning, but are testing the model or piloting the model in a couple of the schools within a certain district. So that if you're in the Los Angeles region, for example, LAUSD has not necessarily fully adopted linked learning, but is looking at the adoption of the programs based on a few pilots that they've operated. And taking from those pilots, really, one is the student learning more during the last 2 years. Are they getting more of that hands-on engagement? Because what we did see about over the last few years is a decrease on those hands-on-the-job training models or classes. So the wood shop and graphic, so wood shop, woodwork, all those classes kind of went away based on funding, state funding, that led to school districts also cutting some of these classes, thus, decreasing the level of opportunities for students to kind of learn some of those socializing skills. And when it comes to the lack of soft skill development, the pathway programs can help the teachers be on the same page when teaching one general industry concept. And so the linked learning model, when we look at the case studies that have came out of the programs, of the readiness of the students, because they are required to do a certain number of hours within certain field engagements, whether that's going out and doing an internship, whether that's paid or unpaid, or going out to visit a certain number of businesses. All of these things really help those students become a little bit more prepared for employment after high school, or propel them to continue with their education within a specific industry that they've outlined. And on that note, we'd like to now move on to the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which is available for those employers that are interested in hiring individuals from target groups with significant barriers to employment. Now, the WOTC, or the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, is generally a tax credit of up to 25% or 40% of a new employee's first-year wages, or up to the maximum for the target group to which the employee belongs to. This tax credit is a great opportunity, especially if you are if you are within a certain low-income community, or are interested in placing somebody who is displaced or fits into one of these buckets. Now, this could be a student that is perhaps a young parent and qualifies for some form of aid, she's deemed as a higher risk placement. And so as the employer that's conducting some on-the-job training, you get a tax credit for that level of engagement. And we have a link here to more information on the form and the specific requirements for you to be able to obtain the tax credit. We'll definitely make sure that when you get a copy of this slide deck at the end of the presentation, that those links and handouts are also included as attachments so that you can download them and take a closer look. A little bit of more background, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit reduces an employer's cost of doing business, and it requires a little bit of paperwork, and applying for the WOTC is simple. Also important to note, you don't have to navigate this on your own. There are various workforce investment boards that can help you walk through the process of the qualifications for the WOTC and actually helping you fill out the paperwork. So based on where you are in the state of California, you can connect with Rhea or myself, and we can connect you directly with a workforce investment board in your community. We also have in certain counties city programs. So the workforce investment boards are operating across the country, funded by both federal and state funding, but then certain cities also do have additional workforce programs in their community that they fund. So here in Southern California, we have a set of workforce centers that also operate under the workforce investment boards, but are separate from and have a separate website. And it is difficult to sometimes navigate these state sites. And so having a direct link or contact, might be helpful if you are interested in obtaining the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. It also can reduce the employer's federal income tax liability by as much as $9,600 per employee hired. And so one of the things that we've heard from a couple of employers that have utilized the Work Opportunity Tax Credit is that they have been able to properly hire an individual for up to a year and have thus since been interested in hiring additional workers under the tax credit because of the incentive that it provides on paper. There is no limit on the number of individuals an employer can hire to qualify them and claim the tax credit. So that's also important if you're a small business and you're looking to grow, but not necessarily sure, do I have all of the funds to hire this employee? Is there some way that I can alleviate that? Tax credits are definitely a great opportunity to be able to realize the higher needs of a small business. And there's also certain tax-exempt organizations that can take advantage of the Work Opportunity Tax Credit by hiring eligible veterans and receiving a credit against the employer's share of Social Security taxes. And so we've seen a couple of nonprofit organizations that also look to hire displaced workers and take advantage of WOTC. So who is eligible? I mentioned veterans, also individuals that receive temporary food assistance are also eligible. SNAP, which is our state's food stamp program, they're also eligible to be classified as an employee that qualifies for the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. So these are individuals that receive some form of supplemental assistance through the state and are eligible also or deemed high risk, high need. Designated community residents, vocational rehabilitation referrals, ex-felons, supplemental security income recipients, and summer youth employees. We've seen for some small employers, a lot of cities and counties operate summer youth programs where they look to place individuals that are displaced in summer youth opportunities, and these 3-month periods can be a great time for you to catch up on maybe some data entry work, hire somebody to really set up your social media or marketing campaigns. These are some of the opportunities that you can also engage on to be able to qualify for this tax credit. And to apply, you could follow these following steps. So you would need to complete several forms. One of them is an IRS form 8850 by the day the job offer is made. Complete an ETA form, which is the 9061 form. All these forms are downloadable on the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, the website that you can see on the bottom of that screen. So you can click on that site, download these forms. But again, if it's your first time applying for the Work Opportunity Tax Credit or you're interested in the tax credit itself, I always recommend, I think Priya, we're both on the same page, it's always helpful to not try to go at it on your own and perhaps connect with one of your local workforce investment boards that can help walk you through the various forms, the proper completion of it, so that you don't delay any tax credit disbursements to you as well. And then submit the completed and signed forms to your state workforce agency. The forms must be submitted within 28 calendar days of the employee's start date. So important to keep in mind those timelines so that you don't miss that window of opportunity. And wait for a final determination from your state workforce agency, and the determination will indicate whether the employee is certified as meeting the eligibility for one of the Work Opportunity Tax Credit target groups. And after the target group employee is certified by the state workforce agency, file for the tax credit with the IRS. And so when you complete your taxes, that is when you would essentially access that tax credit. Moving on.
All right. Now we'll move on to the last section of our presentation, and that is talking about partners and resources, as well as our pledge. So now that we have an understanding of the problems, the opportunities, we know what linked learning is, and we know that there's a tax credit available for certain, working with certain types of young people, how can we get involved within our communities? And so we wanted to put some resources here and some programs to reach out to. So first, we've mentioned workforce investment boards throughout the presentation, so I think it was worth talking about what are WIBs, what do they do, and what do they offer in terms of support to small businesses. So workforce investment boards are across the country. They are regional entities that were created back in 1998 under the Workforce Investment Act. Now, the Workforce Investment Act has actually changed recently, and it's sort of the funding and the types of programs that are included in it have changed, but the actual boards itself remain. And the whole idea behind workforce investment boards is their role is to direct federal, state, and local funding towards local workforce development programs. And one of the important pieces here is that there's a network of one-stop career centers across the country, across California here, that offers a whole host of services, of programs provided for job seekers and for youth as well as for small businesses. So the types of programs that are included at WIBs and at the one-stops are free resources to employers. Many times the WIBs actually serve as the local hub of economic development within local communities. So you might be able to find career development training opportunities. I've actually known of a couple of businesses that have sent their employees to workshops at the WIB to sharpen up their skills in accounting or bookkeeping. I've known that one of the WIBs here in Northern California in San Jose offers weekly workshops for active job seekers as well as employed people as well. So there are the number of resources and programs that are available for you as an employer as well as for your employees. There are hotlines that you can call to answer HR questions. So if you have any questions on the classification of an intern or any various questions that you have around onboarding a young person in your firm. They can take those questions. There are employer advisory councils that are participated by community leaders, local businesses, local business leaders that help to carry out and to ensure that the one-stops and the WIBs are aligned with the needs in the region. So if you're interested in plugging into any of those, I know that the Employer Advisory Council meetings and most of the WIB board meetings are also public as well. So plugging into those and seeing if there are any issues that you'd want to weigh in on or that you think could be relevant for your business could be worth looking into. And then it's also the place to access tax credits available in your region. So it's important to note that when we talk about regional workforce development and regional and tax credits, while there are statewide and federal tax credits, there may be citywide, city-specific tax credits in your region that you may not know about. So more often than not, the WIBs and the one-stops would be a good place for you to stop by and just to see what programs are available to you, what tax credit, how can you really jump in and get involved. And then they also offer local resources. So the local organizations that you are looking to plug into definitely are available under these local workforce investment boards. All right, and then moving on to some of the local partners that we work with. So we wanted to just map out here some of the organizations that are committed to working with us, that have already worked with us on placing young people at small businesses, and that are very active in each of our regions to get involved, to sort of carry out the spirit of work-based learning, not only through the advocacy and educating businesses, but these are the entities that are actually ready and prepared to deploy small business owners and to place young people at your firms. So I don't think we'll go too much into it. It looks like we have about 5 minutes left, but here I'll just mention a couple in Northern California, and then Theo, you can chime in on Southern. So just an example of how we've worked with youth in Northern California is through Hack the Hood. So Hack the Hood is an organization, it is a nonprofit that is focused on training youth in technology. So they specifically focus on training young people on how to create websites and basic HTML and website design. And they link businesses within that process by creating websites for local businesses. So the youth actually go out and they find local businesses to work with. They find local businesses, oftentimes businesses that they've been going to for their life, such as coffee shops, and pitch the idea of revamping their website. And so Hack the Hood we've worked with to create or refer a pipeline of employers to that program, which has been very effective in Northern California, specifically here in the Oakland area. And then Theo, did you have one that you wanted to mention in your region?
Sure. I'd like to mention the San Diego Workforce Partnership. So they actually have been recognized at a national level for their engagement with the small business community. And when we're talking about small business, we're really talking about micro business, those employers with less than 10 employees that, yes, want to be engaged, but because they don't have a dedicated HR department, some of these engagements can be a little bit difficult to manage and navigate. So the San Diego Workforce Partnership actually has a free HR hotline that runs 24 hours where they can help guide you through the tax credits that are available to you, the differences between an employee and an intern, and they also set up live in-person workshops where you could access the various different programs that they operate within the San Diego County. The LA Chamber of Commerce also operates similarly, but they do have different programs. But for more information, you could definitely check out the websites of some of these local partners.
Great. All right. And now lastly, to wrap up here, we wanted to talk quickly about our pledge. So we've started a work-based learning in California pledge that we launched earlier this year to introduce the principles, the idea of work-based learning to small business owners, and to urge them to take action. So this is a screenshot of the pledge here, and we believe that taking simple steps like participating in a career fair, job shadowing, or company tour can help more small businesses create meaningful educational and training opportunities for California's youth. Now this pledge is if you go to the website here, it's workforsmallbiz.com. You'll see some basic information about your organization that you'd have to fill out. But more importantly, it's a pledge for your business to commit to create at least one work-based learning opportunity for a local high school student within the year. And so the options here that you can check off are mock interview, guest speaker, job shadow, business tour, and then we talk about the long-term options like internships, mentorships, employment, and then also there is an option about partnering. So you can fulfill the pledge by partnering with a local workforce investment board or partnering with a local youth nonprofit. So this is, if you're interested in getting involved, this will help us to place you with an opportunity that could be close to your region, or it would help us to create that pipeline of small business owners and find a better way for us to link you with an opportunity that you're looking for. So we definitely encourage you to visit our pledge. Again, it's workforsmallbiz.com. And then if you have any other questions around getting involved or who are the organizations within your community, we certainly will reach back out to you after you sign that pledge. Now with that, I think that wraps up our presentation, and we'll look here to the chat box. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. Let's see if we have any questions here. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions here. Seymour, did you have any last minute words or any questions that you might have come across that you think folks should know about?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think that one of the things that's important to keep in mind is, again, I think what we've been, the ongoing or resonating point in this conversation is the power that small business owners play, and the fact that already there are so many small business owners that may be engaged at some level, but we can market these opportunities and definitely talk about them not just to friends and family, but to your customers, and how much that extra marketing time can turn back for you as a small employer and be a way for you to be engaged to your customers. And I apologize for the background noise there. One of the things that I spoke with one gentleman, and I'll just close off. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. He was a small business owner, came to our National Small Business Leadership Summit in D.C., an event that we host every year. And he was interested, after going there, to bring back some of that and actually engage within his community. And he has a small barber shop, and so he knew he couldn't do it on his own. He has about 5 employees as a small barber shop in the North Hollywood area, and decided to partner with a couple of other small business owners within his strip where his barbershop was located. So about 4 of them agreed to all work with each other, and they ended up getting some support and partnering with a local nonprofit to offer space for youth from that nonprofit to display art in the way of a mural. And a couple of those actually went to walk through visits at each one of the 4 locations, and it was just a great way to showcase the community involvement. He's been featured on our blog and has also taken that first step and is now opening another barbershop and is including that same group of students at that location to talk to customers or potential customers in this new community about their experience with this location and what they've been able to actually learn from that experience and being engaged on that level. And so there's a lot of great programs available at different levels of engagement based on your interest or the industry that you're interested in. Just stay connected and definitely reach out to either one of us. I think that those are direct cell phone numbers on each one of us, and that is our email addresses. So please feel free to connect with us, and definitely encourage you guys to take the pledge, which we just posted a link through our chat box on. And with that, I think that is my closing remark.
Great, thank you. And then for me, I think the last point that I'll just reiterate on is to start small. So I've heard time and time again from businesses when they consider these options that they just don't have the time. But with starting small, so starting with just connecting with a local nonprofit organization like Hack the Hood or like a youth development group that might be more focused on the industry that you serve or that you work in, or particularly interested in a cause or a need that you have, that will help to illuminate the short-term options available. So starting small, getting your foot in the door, and then from there gauging your interest in getting more involved in a longer-term basis, whether that works for you. So again, thank you so much for joining. I know that we did go over a few minutes, but we hope that this was helpful for you in understanding how to work with young people in your communities and understand the power of small business that you have in providing training opportunities for youth and really improving the pipeline of our future workforce. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, feel free to reach out to us and check out our website for future webinars on this topic as well as other small business development topics as well. Have a great day and take care. This will conclude our webinar.